Hey everyone, friend of the podcast, Carl Bonner is a mixing engineer who helps other producers and mixers find, attract, and build better relationships with clients who are making the kind of music you are most passionate about. He recently began developing a course based on how he trains the Spotify algorithm to make super accurate recommendations for you to find potential artists to work with. And he's giving it all away for free while it's still a work in progress. So go to carlbonner.com/coaching to learn more, and I'll have a link for that in the show notes. So go check it out. Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 132 with Josh Bowman. I had a great chat with Josh, and we talked about so many things, including starting his career as a runner at the warehouse, and he talks about what it's like to work at a large recording facility with an old school studio mentality. We talk about his journey to eventually transitioning into full-time mixing, growing a YouTube channel, and social media marketing. We talk about keeping records of how he got his clients and finding new artists to work with. And we get deep into mix revisions, his approach to mixing, being technical versus emotional, work-life balance. We talk about giving up and persevering. And the sauce segment was also really cool because we chat about a song that he mixed in lockdown from his house without his speakers or anything and was still able to get great results. And in the end, we talk about working with what you got and doing the best you can. So really great conversation with tons of takeaways. So with all that to say, here's my conversation with Josh Bowman here on Secret Sonics. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Josh Bowman. Josh is a Toronto-based mixing engineer who works with artists and producers to maximize the feel and emotion of their music. I found Josh on YouTube a really long time ago, and I finally reached out to him to see if he'd be interested to come on the podcast. So I invited him, and he graciously agreed to do so. So with all that to say, welcome to Secret Sonics, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to chat with you. I've seen your podcast around a lot, and you've had lots of great people on here, so I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. So tell the audience a little bit about your story. You know, you got to get a little bit of the backdrop before we could kind of get into the meat, and potatoes. When did music begin for you? Like, how did it all start, and kind of how did that evolve into production, mixing, everything that you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. We can go back to the very start. So my parents both listened to a lot of music, different kinds. My mom was really into like country, like Dolly Parton and stuff. I don't really listen to country, but that was like the influence early on. My dad was more into like classic rock, that kind of stuff, some 70s and 80s. So I had a lot of musical influence growing up. And then I joined band in, I guess, it's called middle school here, like grade 7, I think is the first year. Ended up playing brass instruments in school band. Then I got interested in learning drums because I had a buddy who got a guitar and was like learning guitar, and they were like, we want to have a band and have a drummer. Can you buy a drum kit? And I was like, shit, okay, so I'll figure out how to buy a drum kit, and got some drums, learned to drum, played a bunch of like, alt rock. Like I was really into like Smashing Pumpkins and Nirvana and Soundgarden, that kind of stuff at the time. So we did a lot of like, covers of like Guy from Tools, other band, Perfect Circle, that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then the bass player's dad was a country musician, like a gigging active country musician. Then we ended up finding old gear in like their basement, like there's an old live soundboard and stuff. And I was really lucky that the time I was learning this was around the time that the first sort of affordable 2-channel PCI audio cards were coming around. So like I think it was just before or around the time of first generation M boxes, but this was like I got one of those M Audio back when Pro Tools M Powered was a thing.
This is like very beginning of the 2000s, right? Like 2002 maybe.
2000, around there, because I think I graduated high school in 2003, and this was like mid-high school. So yeah, exactly. Right, yeah. Got into that. I was the kind of nerd of the three of us that learned how to do all that. Got into like Digital Performer and got a little, it was in Behringer, just started existing. So I got like a little Behringer mixer, started like borrowing 58s from like the school jazz choirs, like Mike Locker, and just recording drums at home and stuff. And I just loved it. I had a really supportive band teacher, which was awesome. I was sort of the only person in my grade to be interested in like the music technology side of things. And so I think I was one of the only people taking with this music tech course in high school that people generally just took because it's like an easy A. And the teacher was chill and you didn't have to do anything. But I was the only one that was really, really into it. And so he kind of like helped foster that in me. And They eventually got
awesome.
into 002 when those came, or no, 001 when those came out. And so I was like multi-tracking stuff on evenings and weekends in my high school band room and like getting really deep into it. So yeah, that was the very start. And then I guess after that, I ended up taking a year off before deciding on post-secondary. I was in a really fortunate financial situation where I could go to audio school and have some help with it. I wasn't planning on it just because the costs of the private schools are so prohibitive. I kind of decided like I was realistic about this career path. I was like, I'm probably not going to make any money doing it. It's almost impossible to work in a studio and make a living in music. I was like very real about it from the start. But like I said, it was a super privileged situation where because of a long thing I'm not going to talk about, there was a family situation where like a good chunk of the school could be covered. And so I was like, okay, if it's really like that's okay and it's good, then we'll do it. I still like had to sell my car and work part-time through school and, make it happen, like hustle. But yeah, I went to audio school in Burnaby, BC, did that for 2 years. Again, just like took advantage of everything I could, convinced the dean to let me use like the studio off hours, evenings and weekends when other people didn't have it booked, and just like semester breaks, I was in there recording bands and stuff. Just, got really like, as anyone that is making a living doing this and been doing it for more than a couple of years.
It seems like everybody who's been down like the audio school path, it's the ones that stay in the studio after hours that are the ones that end up keeping at it long enough to to build a career, right? It seems to be a common thread.
You get back what you put in, and if you're the kind of person that's just going to do the minimum, you're not going to make it anyway, probably, because it's just way too competitive of an industry and like such a weird weird job to even
niche
do, right?
Yes, it's the weirdest.
Yeah. So then next step, I got recommended by someone, actually another friend of mine who was at the same school as me, got a job as a runner at a studio in Vancouver called The Warehouse. And they were looking for another intern that potentially could turn into a paid runner position. And so I got recommended by him, and then someone from the school, a teacher that had a connection, interviewed for the job. Basically, they were like, hey, we'll do 2 weeks of like an internship, like unpaid. You just do whatever we need you to do. And then at the end of that, you could potentially get a job. It's not salaried. It's like you get paid by the hour or day, depending on, so if there's a session, you make money. If there's no sessions, you don't make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that worked out.
Foot in, foot in the door.
Really funny though. Like I'd just come back from doing like a kind of backpacking trip. Like I'd spent like a little time in like, Southeast Asia kind of thing. And I came back and like, I didn't really have a car and I wasn't sure, like I was just found myself in like meditation and was like learning all these things and like, so like getting in this weird hippie situation. And like, I got this interview from the studio and I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. I get there and they're like, so basically I was like, I don't have a car. You need a car for the job. There's all these things. And I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. The receptionist, who was also acting as half the studio manager team, it was the receptionist and the tech that were kind of acting as the day-to-day management at the time at the studio because they were between managers. Katie, the receptionist, just really liked me and she convinced the other guy to hire me. She's like, I have a good feeling about him. And so she's the reason I'm even doing this now, probably because I got the job at the Warehouse. It's a big studio,
Shout out to Katie.
Yeah. She's actually in a band called Nice Horse now. It's a country band from Alberta. They're actually doing really well.
Cool.
And they're awesome. It's actually with 2 other members I know from other random band situations. But
amazing.
Yeah, so I got that job. And then from there, like I was just, I was a runner on the 2 main mixers that were working out of the studio. So I should start. The Warehouse, it's a studio in Gastown, Vancouver, BC. It's owned by Brian Adams. It's one of the 2 kind of A-list studios in like the West Coast, basically in Canada. There's the Armory is the other big one. Yeah, so I got the job at the studio. So there's 3 floors. Downstairs, Studio 1 is an SSL 4K. It's got a really nice booth. It's like a great mix room. 3rd floor at the time had an SSL 9K, which was also cool. Great room. And then the main floor has a Neve Air. They call it a Neve Air console. It was from Montserrat originally. It's one of 3 or 4 custom Neves made for George Martin.
Oh, wow.
And so it's crazy, like custom frequent. The EQs are like, the bands are all different than a lot of the other Neves. Like all the modules are slightly different. It's got remote preamps. So the desk actually has the pre's in the desk, but they're actually just remote controlling the actual pre's, which are out on the floor. So it's line level coming off the floor. So just like
got it.
best signal and noise possible, that kind of stuff.
Amazing.
So yeah, amazing room. Like it's huge, beautiful. If you haven't looked it up, look up the Warehouse Studio. It's like I've been to a lot of studios. And it's the best one.
I'll link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, it's like the best studio I've still tracked in anywhere. Like even, I don't know.
How have they managed to stay in business in this age where everyone's kind of moving into the smaller, home studios and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so
I guess it's just the best. When it's the best, it stays in business, right?
It's like one of the, if you're Justin Bieber and you're touring through Vancouver and you want to do cut some vocals, there's only 2 places you're going to do it in Vancouver. And the Armory only has 1 room, so if it's booked, it's booked. That kind of thing. Like there's
Sick.
Yeah, so it's sort of, and there's also, they do lots of indie bands and stuff, but it's not cheap. It's like $1,000 or whatever a day, like high end range. So maybe more.
Understood.
Now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's 2 mix rooms, primarily mix rooms and overdubs, and then tracking room. Since then, they also added Studio 4, which was built just before I left, which is more of like it's an overdub room that has like 1081 sidecar kind of thing and a few like choice pieces of gear, like a couple Pultecs and a GML 8200 and a few pre's and then 8 1081s. And that's just like an overdub room they added in for like a lower cost option, which was kind of their play to try and get some people that maybe wanted to use high end gear in a nice room, but couldn't afford the SSL room. But yeah, so I got the job. I was a runner. So I don't know, that job doesn't exist that many places anymore. Basically, it's like you aren't the assistant. So you're not in the control room with the engineer most of the time. I was coming out of like the sort of militant old school era. Like I wasn't at the time where you get screamed at by people or thrown at things at, or, like nothing was like crazy, but it was still like, oh, don't talk to, if you're working for a big engineer, like talk to them if they talk to you, but otherwise just be quiet and do your job and try and stay out of the way. So it was like very much that. Like when I started, it was just before like I had an iPhone, so I didn't even have like a smartphone or something. I remember if you get put on a mixing session as a runner, you're basically just there to get meals and like help with recalls when they happen on the SSL. So like you'll get the phone will buzz. You're in this little room. It used to be the dubbing room with all the tape dubbing, but like they didn't do that anymore. So this extra room was like the runner's room, and you just sit in this room. You're not really allowed to go on the internet or like do anything. So you just like read manuals or like sit there and wait or like clean the studio. And so you're just waiting. You're like in this room. There's like a couple of you usually waiting for the phone to buzz. You're like, yeah, hello. And they're like, yeah, we need lunch. We're going to go to this. And you run in, like get the thing, get the food, come back. Or they're like, oh, we need to recall this song. Come in. You like, recall the SSL, which if you've never done it, it's not fun. It's like you turn every knob until it's right. And then it does another pass. And it's like, oh, actually all these aren't quite right. So only do like 3 times in a row before it totally passes its inspection of all the knobs being in the right spots.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just a very weird militant thing. There was a couple mixers who were there a lot.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, hurry up and wait. And when you get called, like you do it. You do it fast, whether it's like I need Advil from the corner store or whether it's we need to recall this gear, take notes on something. Whatever you do, you just do it as fast and as well as you can. And the hours were really long. Like the older engineers that had worked there a lot had been grandfathered in old 14-hour days, which was like the old standard. Now, then it went down to 12, and now I think it's down to 10. They're getting into a more reasonable, 2022 kind of lifestyle.
Right, sure.
But, it was at the end of that crazy era. So I was like there, if you're on a big session, the session starts at 10. You get there at 8:30 or 9 because you want to like clean up a bit first and make sure everything's cool before people get there. And you want to get there before the assistant so you can have coffee made for them and stuff because you're like trying to impress the next person in line at all times and make yourself, look good, make everyone happy.
Yeah.
And then you work until maybe the session wraps at between 10 and midnight. And then you're there cleaning up after when the session ends. So there were like weeks where I do that 6-7 days a week for as long as the session went on. Some guys take Sundays off. Some people just work for 5 to 15 days or however long the session is until it's done. And you have no control. Like you ask the assistant, you're like, hey, what time do you think we're wrapping tonight? They're like, I don't know. Like I'll know when the engineer decides we're leaving. And then no one asks, no one plans. It's not like that anymore from what I hear from other people, which is amazing. But it was really like, crazy old school kind of mentalities.
Yeah. I'm sure there's so many benefits from having gone through that. Like I feel like on the one hand, it's a curse, but when you're in your 20s, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And you
yeah, I can't do it now,
and
but
you,
I could.
and you could take it, and you have that opportunity to kind of get into the best studio in like Western Canada, right? And just kind of
Yeah, exactly.
It's an opportunity that you can't like. I'm sure, like I don't know. Looking back on that time, what were some of the things that you maybe learned that you're carrying with you today? I don't know, or you could even talk about anything from